Hey everyone, welcome back to another podcast episode. So this is going to be the first of hopefully a new series, and we're trying something new on here. So we were recording this about mid-August in 2020, and actually back in February, before all the COVID stuff became reality to us, we'd actually planned a few in-person house hacking masterminds. The plan was to get right around like 10 people together in the same room. Have dinner or have coffee and breakfast and actually just lead a mastermind. I'm a huge believer in that whether you're starting a business or investing or achieving goals in life, I think having a core group of people with similar interests and traits is huge. I know when I was in college and I got going down the investing and business route, I was like, I want to learn about this. And a lot of my current friends were, they were doing a lot more cake stands and partying than I was. And I was like, hey, it's always good to get, I think, aligned with like other people. Obviously, I'm not older than that now, but same train of thought. So I know a lot of people that get into investing, they're often on an island with their current friends or family. Not a bad way, just say you want to go this path and your friends, parents just don't know it, don't support it. And so we have finally gotten everything together to actually do some pivoting on here. Because it's very clear that, we're going to be doing a lot of virtual stuff probably well into 2021. So we want to start doing hopefully like a monthly house hacking mastermind. And the whole goal is that we can actually do it with a small group of house hackers, and I'll be moderating it, kind of helping just kind of keep things going. We'll have a couple core hosts, some repeats, some new guests in there, as scheduling allows. We can mastermind on here. We can do some virtual networking. And then obviously we're gonna have like the video on YouTube, the podcast, and the audio on the podcast. And so it's gonna be a really great concept. So as you listen to it, listen to what feedback you have, how to make it better. If you can be on the show, reach out to us. There'll be details in the show notes on how to do that, or just email me and we'll know what to do, what we're doing then. But getting on with it, I've got two main co-hosts here with me today. And so the first one is Ben Einspar. And Ben's kind of the one that actually got this virtual mastermind going. He and I talked about a while ago, and then Ben kept it going, get it organized. So Ben, a lot of you guys are probably familiar with him on the podcast. He and his wife, Alyson, are house hackers in Nevada. They've been on a couple podcasts now. They're doing some Airbnb stuff there. So Ben and Alyson, glad to have you on here.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for having us.
And then our second co-host is Jeff White. And Jeff is actually he's actually on his fourth house hack now, I believe, right, Jeff?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So I think Jeff has been on 3 or 4 published podcasts. He's been a whole lot here coming out after this house hacking mastermind. Jeff, myself, and Joe Massey, when we got locked down with COVID, we recorded like a 15 or so podcast series that we've now named the Ultimate House Hacking Guide. Really meant to be like a technical guide to house hacking in Denver. And the mastermind show will be a great way to help kind of like get all those nuanced stuff. Because no matter how great the content is, there's always details on, well, how the heck do I really do this? So Jeff, glad to have you on here.
Thanks so much, Chris. Pleasure to be here.
All right. So we're going to go through and give an intro to everyone else as well. And so this is in no particular order, but our first guest is Kendra. And Kendra has been investing in real estate since 2017. And she just got her first house hack back in April of this year. And she enjoys the versatility of real estate investing and is looking forward to her next investment opportunity. Glad to be on the call, Kendra.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our next guests are Carl and Jenna, and they have been living and renting in Denver for the past 8 years. They bought their first house in August 2019 as a house hack, and they're renting out the garden level in-law suite as a short-term rental. And now they're doing a midterm rental, anywhere from 31 days to about 90 days. And they enjoy the do-it-yourself experience of renovations, customer experience, and the supplemental income, which they are saving to reinvest in the future properties. Glad to have you guys here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Next people on the mastermind are Chris and Justiny. And they have been in Denver since 2019. And then in February this year, they bought their first house hack. And they're currently Airbnb-ing the garden level part of their house. It's a private 1-1 suite below the main part of their home. And they really enjoy the income as well as meeting all of their Airbnb guests. Glad to have you here, guys.
Yes. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
All right, moving on down, our guest list is Ivy and Luis. They've been in Denver for about 3 years, and they are actually closing on their first house hack tomorrow, which is a duplex. It's a great property, and they're going to be renting out the top unit, long-term model, while they're living in the bottom unit. They recognize the benefits of real estate investing, and they are looking to learn as much as possible. So Ivy and Luis, glad having a call, and congrats on your first place tomorrow.
Thanks, Chris. We're happy to be here.
And then I already kind of mentioned Alyson, but I'll do it again to give you the official introduction here, Alyson. So Alyson is, Ben's wife. They're a couple. And I love your description of Alyson. She is a house hacking skeptic turned advocate. Her day job is in ophthalmology. Her background's in hospitality and the proud co-host of the private guest suite Airbnb that she and Ben run. So she enjoys the guest communication and watching the market for creative house hacks. Alyson, glad to have you on here.
Thanks for having me.
And I have to tell you, the podcast you and Ben did, I think it was like 3 months ago now, we've gotten some really good feedback on other, fiance and wife skeptics. You're like, oh, okay, they're still married. We should do house hacking too. So it's been great. actually, they're still married and they're still alive.
Yes.
Indeed. Important factors.
Yes. So Ben's done a phenomenal job. We actually asked some questions from all the guests here, and Ben did a great job of filtering them and combing them. So I'll help lead them. And then Ben, Jeff, and everyone else out there, add your 2 cents, clarify. Ideally, we'd be sitting around a big conference table, getting jacked up on some coffee right now to talk. But right now we're all sitting, all across Denver. So we'll do our best to replicate this. So Ben, the first question, you got the agenda in front of you there? I just lost mine.
Yeah.
Cool.
I got the first one that I wanted to bring up to everyone was just basically your flexibility with rental strategies, whether you're having to adapt on the fly and go from a short-term rental to a long-term rental. I know, Kendra, this is something you brought up to me. Didn't you say you closed on a house and had to switch strategies on the fly?
Exactly, yes. So Airbnb is like my thing. So my other 2 investments, I do out-of-state Airbnb, which I totally love. And so that was my original plan with the house hacking. I wanted to Airbnb the basement. And as you know, since I closed in April, that's like when COVID started getting a little crazy and everything was unsure, and I didn't know how it would really affect, numbers and things like that. So I instantly just switched gears completely 180, decided to find long-term tenants, do a 1-year lease until this all kind of settles down. And then that way, at least, I'm kind of secure for 12 months getting that cash in. I'd rather get a little bit than none. So it's just nice being able to be flexible with that.
So let's dig into this because this is interesting. So first, what's the location and property type of your house hack here in Denver?
So I have a single family house, but it's almost like a duplex. So the top level is completely separate from the bottom level. It's a separate entrance. Each level has their own laundry room. Each level has its own kitchen. Each level is a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. So essentially it's a duplex, even though it's zoned as a single family. That's what made it so great for the Airbnb.
Yeah.
Being
and what part of town
separate.
are you in?
This is in Westminster.
Okay.
Yep.
And so what were you projecting? It sounds like you're an Airbnb expert. I definitely am not, but what were you projecting just gross rent and then net rent after expenses and fees? And then what was it like after you pivoted?
Yeah. So right now I'm doing $1,850 for my long-term tenants for the rent.
Nice.
Yeah, which isn't bad. That almost covers the mortgage, almost.
So 3-bedroom, 2 bath?
It's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath.
Wow, you're getting that much for 2-1?
Yeah. Well, the house
Rocking.
is completely redone, everything in it's brand new everything, appliances, very updated. So I was able to, I guess, charge a premium, which I feel lucky to do, and that someone agreed to do it. So,
And what were you projecting for Airbnb?
Airbnb, see, I didn't know because I haven't done Airbnb in Denver yet. So all of my numbers were very rough. I honestly didn't know what I could get for it, which is why I completely did my 180 and decided to do the long term.
Did medium-term rentals cross your mind?
No.
Okay.
Not really.
Yeah. Any regrets with the pivot? I know it's a hard question, but I mean, if you're getting 1850, to me, that sounds phenomenal for a 2-1.
Yeah, I definitely don't have regrets. I'm very comfortable, and I feel lucky that I was able to find someone right away. So I don't have any regrets. I'm just like really antsy to get it on the Airbnb market already.
How long is your long-term renters, or how long is your lease?
12 months. So
Okay,
until
so
April of
you'll
next
be
year.
out until next year then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That is a really impressive rent for 2-bedroom, 1 bath.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I know. That is it, and it's a bottom basement unit too. So
Yeah, it's garden level.
Wow.
I'm amazed you get them, because even like Jeff, if you were in 2 bedrooms, what would you get for 2 bedrooms individually? Maybe that much?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of my garden level basement units, and my best one's 1,300, but it's also more basement with egress windows than garden level, so that makes a difference. And it's not fully updated like what hers sounds like. And then my top one's getting 1,450, so that's really impressive, Kendra.
Thanks.
I'm jealous.
Nice work.
So Chris and Justin, I know, you guys bought February this year, and it feels like eons ago. But I know you were Airbnb-ing, you still are. Like, have you had to adapt or change anything with the changing market?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you go.
We launched beginning of March. So we had a lot of bookings right away for basically like March through May, would you say?
It was very exciting.
Like, it was almost,
like that day we got like
quite a few.
15 bookings
Yeah.
this day we let it out.
So we were pretty pumped. But then like end of March, beginning of April is when COVID hit, and
everything was unsure, and everyone started canceling all of their reservations. So we kind of had to change our plan there.
Yeah, so on Airbnb you can add weekly and monthly discounts. So we pretty much had all of April and May open back up. And we didn't know what the travel situation was going to be like with COVID. So we added like a 40% monthly stay, and then I think maybe a 25 or 30% weekly stay on top. Like, that's taken off our normal Airbnb daily rate. So we ended up getting someone basically for the whole month of April with that 40% discount. So it's definitely not as good as what Kendra had, because I think we ended up with $1,000 that essentially they paid for the month of April for our place, which we were happy with, because like we didn't, and we weren't sure, how often people would have been booking, shorter stays during that time. So no turnover, which was nice, no cleaning for us. So we had the full month of April booked, and then we had another long stay, I think for 2.5 to 3 weeks, beginning of May, and that was maybe another 800 or 700, $800. So that ended mid-May, and then we went back. We took those 2 discounts away then, because
things started really picking up.
Yeah, like mid-May, I would say, is when things pick back up. So it definitely helped. Like, those 2 things on Airbnb, the monthly and weekly discounts, were big for us to just get through essentially April and May. But yeah, we're back to the normal, just no discounts at this point.
Yeah, I remember us looking at each other one day and being like, what are we going to do? Like, is this even going to work? Airbnb at this point. So being flexible was really helpful for us, and just kind of going with the flow and taking the punches.
Yeah.
So what were you projecting? What were you expecting Airbnb rents before COVID?
I think we were thinking around 1,700, 1,800.
Yeah.
Hey, can you hear us?
Yeah, we hear it. There's just a lag, so keep going.
Oh, gotcha. All right. We were projecting, I think, 1,600, 1,700. before COVID. So then we went down to about $1,000 for April and May. However, now that we have good reviews, and we're back to our normal daily rate for June, July, and what it looks like is going to be projected for August, we're probably going to make, I think it's like $1,700 per month with Airbnb, and that's for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, somewhat
Private
updated,
entrance,
yeah,
yeah.
private entrance, and we normally block like a week off every month just to not have Airbnb guests. So that's been nice because we still get, I mean, our mortgage is $2,000, like principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So
Yeah.
we're basically covering our mortgage with 3 out of the 4 weeks of the month booked. So it's going pretty well.
Oh, that's great.
One thing that I really liked hearing is you said once you started getting those reviews, it seems like once you start getting those reviews, it starts compiling in. Then, especially when you get to superhost status, it sets you up above everyone else. And when everyone starts looking at possible Airbnbs, this is something Alyson and I would check about every day, is you see your place start jumping up and up on the competition, kind of like a Google search engine. When you start searching something, it shoots up higher and higher, and you're able to raise your prices.
Yeah, so we've actually recently been raising our prices every day, probably based on the market. So we're seeing how high we can go.
And I mean, yeah, you get more bookings, and I think a higher quality of guests too.
Yeah.
Once you get good
are better.
reviews and superhost status, I think we've noticed quite an uptick in just like cleanliness and respectfulness of guests.
Oh,
So yeah, that's
a
been
quality tenant too.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah. We had some rough, like somewhat rough at first, but
Questionable, guys.
yeah, but a lot better now. So
Is that pretty normal for superhost status? I just don't know the Airbnb platform. Is that a pretty normal experience for host?
I think people look for superhost status. So
Okay.
More
I guess you're getting more visibility to start with, and then I mean, what plays in with it is, you know, you can kind of raise your price once you get good reviews and superhost status. So a higher price probably attracts a different set of travelers than what, you know, a $20 bedroom would attract. So I think they kind of play off each other a little bit.
Yeah. Would you guys say so, Ben and Alyson?
I would agree. We decreased our prices quite a bit when COVID started as well. It always makes me a little nervous. We get those requests like, hey, can I pay you by the day? Or, you know, like those types of things. And it's just not something that I want to deal with. I think when you get to a certain price point, I don't know exactly what that is. I feel like the quality definitely goes down. And I don't know why. Maybe people associate price with value, like they say you do. But yeah, we found the same.
So Carl and Jenna, I know you, when we were talking about it, you guys kind of were on the same timeline as us. And are you still being effective with Airbnb?
So our situation was a little bit different being in Englewood, Colorado. We were kind of prepared for a little bit of a shakeup before COVID because the city recently started setting up their short-term rental rules, and in the meantime just said absolutely no short-term rentals, put a moratorium on everything. So this was about say 2 months before COVID really started to affect everyone. So we kind of had to pivot pretty early on. And you know, to abide by the city's rules, we had to switch to the 30-day minimum stay, which I guess puts us in the medium-term rental category, which we've actually come to really enjoy. You know, we've been able to host a few people since then. I think, at least in these times, we appreciate the, you know, less turnover, so you know, less time cleaning, disinfecting, things like that. And those medium-term renters, there's sort of an understanding that, you know, they buy their own supplies and, you know, bring that kind of thing. So a lot less of us trying to fight for, you know, the essentials like toilet paper and soap and things like that to stock our Airbnb. So that's worked out great. We even had the opportunity to help out a friend at one point. You know, we had a break in our schedule and a friend that was, you know, going through unemployment. Yeah, so we were able to give her a place to stay for a little while to help everyone out. It just felt great to be able to do that. And she helped us out too with chores and a little bit of supplemental income as well. So I think it was a win-win. But we're still kind of trying to figure out the whole Airbnb, how to get back into the market because of the new regulations. It's kind of making it a little bit cost prohibitive, but because of the flexibility, I think we like the medium term and even open to long term now. Just whatever seems to work and get us to our price point we feel comfortable at.
So what's the layout of your house? What's the setup?
It sounds pretty similar. It's almost considered like a duplex, even though it's a single family. We have the separate entrance to a downstairs unit, so we have the garden level. I think it sounds like it might be more like Jeff's, where it's sort of egress windows, but there is a walkout entrance, and they've got their own kitchenette, their own bathroom, but it's a 1-bedroom, and we even keep a storage unit down there that guests don't have access to. So.
And what type of like medium-term rental rates are you getting?
So it's pretty much come out to about $1,300 a month, and that's with a 48% discount on our nightly Airbnb rate. And we
Okay.
have been booking it through Airbnb, which has actually been great because you get to find medium, long-term renters, and you get to see a profile. They get to vet you, you get to vet them. So it's kind of a great setup.
And so is that a 2-1 downstairs?
It's a 1-1.
1-1. Okay.
Yeah.
Who are
Sorry, Jeff.
your, I guess, who are the types of medium-term renters? Are you next to that Swedish hospital in Inglewood? Are you, or is it
Yes.
more like business nurses or business people or just depends? Yeah.
We've been getting more of actual like recent graduates, or like right now we have a student, I guess he just graduated and he's doing his like internship around here this summer, so that was perfect. And then I think our next, right after he leaves, there's like a week break, and then our next person is a recent graduate from Pennsylvania who's thinking about moving out here, so he just wants to come out here and job hunt and see if he likes it.
So Ivy and Luis, are you guys convinced to go short term, medium term now after this?
Well, I think we're still in the idea of going long term. We close tomorrow, so we haven't really experienced any of what you all are talking about. However, we have already experienced having to be flexible throughout the process from a lending standpoint. From thinking the house we were going to purchase was a single family home for it, and then it being appraised as a duplex, we had to change our lending strategy kind of halfway through the process on the fly. And we're still moving forward, so the game plan still continues, but we've definitely had to be flexible and just adapt as we go.
And I would say hearing Kendra's story and Chris and Justini and Ben and Alyson, I'm intrigued, because I thought that you had to be centrally located to have an Airbnb, and I hear Westminster, Inglewood, and, it's nice to know that I actually have more options because we're located in Lakewood. And so it's nice to know that, if anything ever happens, or if we do want to try the Airbnb route, that there are options for us. So it's good to hear that, because I thought that being where we are located, that long-term was really the only option.
Yeah, if you or actually anyone else wants it, we've got a master AirDNA account. We can run the comps for you on there as well. So, all right, so kind of opening up here. I mean, Jeff, Ben, anyone's out there, just questions, comments, kind of talking about transitioning and how things are going during these times?
Transition right now, we started off on the Airbnb route, but now we're actually going through Furnished Finder.
Oh, really?
And yep, Allison's been doing an excellent job staying on top of Furnished Finder.
What is that? Sorry.
What's that?
What is Furnished Finder?
It was originally created for traveling nurses mostly. So a lot of travel nurses will be on 13-week contracts, and I think a lot of hospitals partner with Furnish Finder. And I think the benefit is medium-term renters that have real jobs that get background checks and drug screens and credit checks and all those things before they're able to work in these places. Now I think it's expanded quite a bit, but it's $100 a year. And I will tell you, I've talked to a ton of people and gotten minimal return messages. So it's a lot of work for a little bit of return, but if you get somebody in for 3 months, which we did for June through September, it's worth all that time you spent contacting people, but it's a really good second option. It also does a tenant screening in addition. So you put in the tenant's information, it's called Key Check, and it will prompt them to do a background check or a tenant check, and they will pay for it. So these are people with really set budgets with what their work's gonna give them for a housing stipend, and so they pretty much know all the information they need from the get-go. So I think it's been interesting to work with them. So that's what we're working with.
What type of rates are you seeing on the medium term? Because I'll say anywhere from probably about a dozen times the last year and a half, we've looked at it when like buying house hacks rental properties. We've never been very impressed with like the medium term rental rates. I mean, it's been maybe like I'd say like $200 more than a long-term rental rate. And we just have never been impressed by it. Again, we're not experts, but I've never seen like a big price from, hey, Airbnb, great. You're going to like double your income. It's more work, but it's worth it. Meaning you're like, hey, you do a lot more work for an extra $200 a month. And we're like, yeah, I've had yet-to clients go do it. So I'm really curious to hear you guys as guinea pigs.
So if we look at just local comps, we've been talking about long-term rental and Airbnb. If you look, the comp for it's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath above our attached garage. I'd say for long-term unfinished rental is anywhere about $1,100, maybe $1,200 a month, and our average monthly income before expenses for Airbnb was anywhere between $1,950 to 21, even 22. But keep in mind, those were in the prime summer months, and what I've noticed for medium term is about $1,400, I would say. But what I think is important is if you start off with Airbnb, we've noticed that do whatever you can to try to stay with the Airbnb or Furnish Finder, because it's a huge pain to try to move all your stuff you have in there into a storage unit into your room just to try to get a long-term rental in. So even if Furnish Finder, you end up being just a little bit above the long-term rental, it's a win in our book.
Yeah, the key is furnished, so you can just transition it super easy between an Airbnb or a 1 to 3 month rental. So there's a lot of flexibility, which is nice.
So far, I mean, Ben, you're saying or Alyson, you're saying it's been quite a bit of work. Do you think is the juice worth the squeeze so far, do you think?
Well, we had somebody for 3 months, so I feel pretty fortunate that we had somebody come in. We've definitely lowered our price. That's about $1,200. We have it listed now for about 14, and we were significantly higher with Airbnb. That's fine. So at first, no, I wasn't getting very many replies or a lot of feedback, or a lot of people just, had already found a place. But if you get one person in for the year, I think it's worth it. So.
Yeah.
And the important thing, which we were lucky, is we ran our financials based off worst case scenario. So when we ran it, we were like, all right, well, what we're going to do is do long term and get, I think at the time it was like $1,100 a month. And that was worst case scenario. But then when we started diving into the numbers, I remember, Chris, I highly recommend AirDNA. It's excellent. Yeah. Very accurate, but is looking at it and playing worst case scenario. But then if you start making more and you start going the medium term, short term, it's just icing on the cake, and just don't plan on that extra income. So when unexpected things happen, because from what it sounds like, we're all having to adapt, because I don't think anyone's ever gone through a pandemic like this, we do what we do naturally as we adapt.
Yeah. And so we've heard from everyone, and Jeff, I know you've got, you've got a really impressive portfolio. You got a fourplex, you've got, 2 single family homes, which are kind of like duplexes, similar to what Kendra and Ivy and Carl have described. And then you're in a house now with an ADU as well. Like, have any of your strategies pivoted since COVID?
Yes. So I was fortunate, I guess, split like those single families like duplexes. Basically, I split them up where I'd have a long-term tenant on like upstairs or downstairs, and then I live on the other side and then rent out by the room. And then I move out and then I keep it the same, except I have a new person replace the room I left. So in a way, I guess took away multiple streams of cash flow without having like, oh, well, if this tenant loses their job, like that hurts like my whole entire property basically. But instead of having basically, 2 tenants separately, it's now like 5 or 6. So it spreads out the risk. And the only thing I changed since all started was look more at Section 8. So my current place is what Chris described, a house with an ADU. Live on the ADU section, and the front house, it's 6-bedroom, 2-bath place. I rented that to a Section 8 family just to get more of that for sure income.
What was the final Section 8 rent for this?
$3,000 for a 6-bed, 2-bath. Yeah, and in this part of Denver, Southwest Denver, there's not likely to. I don't think there'd be any way I'd get that type of rent because it's not that nice.
Dude, you had $3,000 on? That's awesome.
Yeah. And then besides that, the other strategies I've done is really emphasize screening, background, like even more so job verification and background checks, because I feel like I've noticed there's been more people lying about like they're giving their friends or family, like saying, oh, so-and-so's verified my job. So I make sure to get really get pay stubs and confirm it's an actual place of employment. So I feel like people are a little more desperate right now to hide the fact. So that's something to watch out for when you screen tenants is they might have their brother as their boss or something like that, but with a fake name. And then outside of that, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was gonna finish. I was gonna ask another question.
Oh, and besides that, yeah, I guess I like split it. I did Airbnb in my 4-unit back, my first property. It was a great experience, but I remember, and Ben and Alyson could attest, it's a lot of work dealing with people going in and out. And then cleaning with my partner, it was an adventure every single time. And eventually we had a cleaner, but I pretty much got off that. And I know it's a great strategy for some people if you have the right property. And the location, back to what Ivy was concerned about, location, as long as you're priced right, you can get people, even if you're not in the most popular part of town. Lakewood's still a great spot. You're still next to stuff. So yeah, I guess it's important just to have multiple strategies just in case. I think that's the lesson learned in all this. And what I'm doing is working for me, what Ben and Alyson are doing working for them. And, having multiple scenarios like, okay, best case, medium case, worst case. So if you have to have a long-term renter and you can't do Airbnb, what do the numbers look like? And I think that's where adapting to different changes or laws changing, like what happened in Englewood, you can't predict stuff like that, but just important to have multiple strategies just in case.
Is anyone going through tenants not paying rent?
I've had.
See, a lot of people shaking their heads no. That sounds like you may have a story, Jeff.
Yeah, so I had one of my, back at the 4-unit, a couple of the tenants lost their jobs right when it all first started, and I reduced their rent 25%. So they still made it. And now they're all caught up again. They got their jobs back. And then I had another tenant couple other tenants lose their jobs or get furloughed or reduced hours, and I worked with them on payment plans, but that's pretty much it. Everyone else is paid in full.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else experiencing that? Cool. So actually, I want to throw a different question out here, Ben, if you're cool with that on the agenda, because I didn't realize the timing of this when we scheduled it, since Ivy and Luis are closing tomorrow, and this is always becomes the big question once you get something. Hey, Denver's a fast market, as everyone knows out there. It's fast. You're usually bumping other people to putting offers in. You lose out once or twice often. You get in a contract. Great, you get past inspection. And then, oh crap, we close tomorrow in their case. Does everyone out there is free for all, like what tips, they're closing tomorrow, what advice would you give them since you've all been through that?
I'm all ears.
So let's see. Jenna, we haven't heard from you. Can I pick on you?
Yeah, sure. Well, when Carl and I closed, I think we were the basement needed a little bit of work. So I know like there was some water damage in the wall. So we knew like from the get-go, that was something we had to take care of. And Carl could probably speak to this a little better than me, but I wanted to hire someone to take care of it, but he was really do-it-yourself kind of mentality. So he went ahead and took a sledgehammer or something to the wall.
Yeah.
So anyways, it ended up taking a month maybe to take care of the issue. So I don't know, there are some unexpected things, I think, once you close on a house, some things come up that, I mean, at least they did for us, that we wouldn't have thought would have come up. So rather than like renting it out pretty immediately, I think it took like a month or two before we started actually renting out our house. But yeah, Carl, do you want to talk about your experience?
Yeah, I think as a first-time homeowner, we moved in and saw, okay, we saw the potential, but we also saw the problems that were sort of holding us back a little bit. So I personally wanted to jump right in, and I've learned since then that it sometimes is beneficial just to take a step back and examine the problem and just see how it actually works, if it's really a problem, and kind of do a real cost-benefit analysis. Yeah, because like Jenna said, I think that set us back about a month or so of getting Airbnb set up. So if you look at that cost, maybe we should have just hired someone to do it, but I love the DIY aspect, so I don't regret it really, but thinking back, it was a learning experience, and we don't just take sledgehammers to things that we don't like anymore.
That's my experience. Every time I try to DIY it myself, I'm like, yeah, I should have hired someone that would have been done faster. And that's usually my experience with it. Kendra, I think you're the most recent newer house hacker since you bought yours in April. So this is probably the most fresh in your mind. What advice would you give to Ivy and Luis?
Oh, goodness. All right. Well,
And they're going for a long-term rental like you are too. So this might probably be perfect advice.
yeah. So I bought my house supposedly turnkey, but as some of you know, when you're living there, you start seeing some things that aren't quite how they should be. And so right when I moved in, I was instantly like overwhelmed with like this long list of things I needed to fix, especially for like my tenants that are moving in. So I think like the best advice would be to just like not get too overwhelmed with a ton of things that you need to do, and just really kind of like what Carl said about just like prioritizing what really needs to be done first, and kind of just stepping back and just prioritizing, I guess. I don't know.
that is something that Luis and I have been talking about like constantly, is what do we want to tackle first?
Yeah.
And I, like, he is like more of a do-it-yourself as well. And I'm like, can we just hire somebody? And so we're having these same conversations, and luckily, our original plan was to kind of slightly bring up the upstairs unit so that we could charge a slightly higher rent. But actually we've had Luis's coworker's sister, she she's interested in the property, which is great, but she doesn't want to pay what we wanted to get for it. So, you know, we were talking and we're like, well, let's just not do anything to it and just give her the lower rent. And it's actually been perfect because we don't, you know, our initial thought was we want to make it nice and get a higher rent, but we just don't know what's going to come up. And so it's actually worked out fine if she actually signs, you know, that we really don't have to do anything to it as is, and we won't get it high as a rent, but it's perfect because there are so many other things we can spend money on or need to spend money on. So we are constantly juggling that right now.
What's the difference between what's the current rent as is, and what do you think the expected rent is, and how much money you can put into to upgrade it?
So we're going to ask for $1,500. And then we wanted to take out the carpet and give them hardwood and, you know, update cabinet hardware and even put maybe stainless steel appliances in there. And we wanted to ask like $1,600 or $1,650. And that, you know, that's even the thought in our mind was, is that even worth it? You know, for $150 or $100 extra. And so it's nice that maybe, you know, we are able to X that idea, give it some time, and we can think about that for longer.
Yeah, I mean, basically the kind of simple math that we did in our heads was we'd rather get someone in there as soon as possible, because if one extra month of rent would make up the difference of the $100 a month or $150 a month. You know, it just, so we have this person scheduled to come tour the house Saturday. And we're thinking of keep it simple. It's our first one. Let's not, you know, overdo and overpromise ourselves. So we have no idea what we're getting into kind of. So that's kind of the strategy we have at hand right now.
Hey, Jeff, what advice would you give? Because I know you've done quite a few. I think you found some sweet spot in your upgrades. I think you've done a really good job on like the tenant type upgrades where they're great for rental properties, for, you know, making them durable, but also helping to maximize the rent, but not go completely over budget. What would be your advice for hardwood over carpet? You said new hardware, stainless steel appliances. Like, what's your thought on that, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, hardwood definitely is. I guess I look at it from if you put it on your rental when you're a renter, shoes, stainless steel appliances, hardwoods, beautiful granite counters. That's all great. But in that, if you're looking for only $1,500, I'm not sure if you need all that stuff, especially if the appliances are, unless they're really old and dated, you're probably fine with whatever is there now. And then the, you know, simple like door, a simple fix to make cabinets look better is repaint them and put new hardware in, and you get, without having to buy brand new cabinets. And then you could also spray an epoxy on the counters if you have old, that looks almost like granite, just to make it a little more visually appealing. Those are some quick tips. Baseboards, another easy one. Paint is a great one. There's a lot of little things you could do just to, that don't cost a ton of money and still get that renter look. If you're telling me you wanted like $2,000 or so for a 2-bedroom, then I would say for sure get stainless steel appliances, probably redo the whole kitchen. But if you're just looking for $1,500, you could probably get it with some minor do-it-yourself fixes that you guys can do yourself.
Yeah, agreed. I don't even know if our area would support a $2,000 rent.
I don't think it would.
Yeah. So I agree fully. It's good to hear.
Well, plus you guys, I think if I recall from the inspection, I think the electrical was the big stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's going to be what, like, was it $3,000 or $3,500 was the quote?
Yeah, we still need to get an electrician in there and get kind of an overall scope.
Okay.
So we'll see. That's a big one for us.
I think, I think a challenge for us is just not only is this our first rental property, this is just our first house in general. We've always rented our whole lives. So keeping always in the back of our head that this isn't our home. This is a rental property, and we're living here temporarily until we can move on to the next one. But that's just something we, especially Ivy, we want to do more, and then we have to back up and say, remember, we're here temporarily. This is a rental. So that is just a little challenging, but.
And I'm
Yeah,
glad
it's
you
my
said,
first
because
house.
that's an important thing to understand. Like I mean, in the past when I've been, kind of similar situations, I've written notes to myself where like I used to write like sticky notes and like slap on my bathroom mirror every day to look at it. And, write, hey, this is a rental, not your dream home or something. I'd write things like that as reminders to make sure like, oh yeah, this is that one chest moving the grand scheme of things. Just get this, ignore this other crap out there. Any other guys got comments or advice for kind of from day one operations for them?
I will attest to Luis and Carl about wanting to take a sledgehammer. I think we were in the same thing about remodeling. We didn't see income for the first 2 months, I think, because we chose 2.5 months. We chose to do it out ourselves because we did end up decide doing the Airbnb route. So we wanted to make it trendy and flashy and make it our own. But it was work. Anyone who tells you it's not, like, I'll say it took us like I said 2.5 months, and once a week there was something we ran into where I was like, crap, this is the deal. Let's just hire it out. I'm done. I don't know how to do this. And it was in the middle of the summer. We had to go to Home Depot on a Saturday at noon, drive through Old Town Arvada, see everybody out having beers, drinking. It's not fun. But the biggest thing, my biggest takeaway was, and for anyone who has maybe a little bit of general construction knowledge or can learn yourself through YouTube, is you don't learn when you're up there how to rebuild a bathroom, fix up a kitchen. You learn that you can learn just about anything you want to if you put your mind to it and you do your due diligence and you do your research. You can learn almost anything.
What's your perspective on it, Alyson? I saw you
Okay,
no. Smirks on there while Ben was talking.
A couple of things from a female perspective. I'm really grateful we did it all mostly ourselves because I felt really empowered and I learned a lot, and I was really proud of the job we did, even though we almost killed each other working in no air conditioning, tiling that freaking shower that was so small. But we made it. But just a couple of things. The first thing is time. It's always going to take more time than you think it is. So if your husband says this will be done today, don't expect it to be done before the end of the week. Just adjust your expectations and give each other a lot of patience. And another thing is, don't get attached to the space. If you're not able to rent it out right away, don't picture yourself living in that space. Just don't get attached to it. It's going to be a rental. That helped us. Like, we originally were going to live up in our Airbnb and rent out our 3-2. And so I kind of got attached to it at the beginning. I'm like, this is so cute and cozy. And then we changed plans and it was great, but it's better if you don't get attached to it. Females more than males probably. And then hot plate instead of a stove. You don't want to buy a bunch of appliances. Probably don't have to worry about a dishwasher or stove if you're Airbnb-ing. I mean, there's a lot of places that just have a coffee maker and a microwave and a mini fridge. Like, if you have more than that, you're doing pretty good, I feel like. So lots of options. We took out our stove, didn't replace it. Fire hazard, just get a small hot plate, and no one's complained. No one's like baking cookies up there. So yeah.
Great.
That's all I got.
No, that was great, Alyson. Yeah, I would agree with everyone else, Luis and I. If you got someone coming on Saturday, let them walk and see what their reaction is. And hey, if they'll take it $1,500 right away, and you guys have to spend a month and $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, take that. But even though, since it's do not fall in the trap, it's a friend or a friend of a friend type situation, still do the background screening. Go through Cozy or whatever. I know Ben and Alyson and Jeff can give some websites. Still do a background check, right, guys?
100%.
Yes, even your friends will lie to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's that
yeah, we
background.
talked about that.
Cool. Let's go back and thanks for letting me slip that in there. We got some more time. What's the next question on there, Ben?
The next one is it's still on the topic of Airbnb, and it's cleaning. Should you do it yourself or should you hire it out? I know Chris and Jessany, you guys have been doing Airbnb a while. Have you been doing it yourself or did you hire it out? I see you guys.
We have been doing it ourselves, but mainly because Chris works from home, so it's easy for him. And then I work 3 nights a week and then have 4 days off. So really like that alternative route for us is nice. We call it our part-time job. And it's nice knowing that we get like the money versus someone else. Yeah, the cleaning fee versus someone else. Our recommendation really is to, if you're starting Airbnb, to at least do your cleaning for like a month or 2 and see what your process is, how long it takes, and what materials you need for it before you hire on someone. We have had conversations, should we hire on someone or not, just to give ourselves a break, but.
Shout out to Ben for the cleaner contact.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shout out to Ben's Pocket for the too.
There we go.
We haven't yet, and we are a little surprised at times how dirty people can get, but if we're one night.
But I'd say on average it takes us
bad.
40 minutes if it's both of us to clean our 1-1. So, I mean, we have a $25 cleaning fee. So, I mean, we're making barely above minimum wage, but we're home all the time.
Yeah.
Or during the week, I'm home. So
yeah,
it's not too bad. And then you can kind of keep tabs on what's going on with the unit itself. You know, if you have to tighten a doorknob or small little fixes like that, it's kind of nice to have that insight into it with the cleaning. But yeah, do it for a month or 2, and then if you have the schedules that are available too, I guess. And then, you know, if you don't like it, I say hire it out, and then you have at least the knowledge to hire a cleaner, and kind of know what's needed for the cleaning.
So far we're gonna stick out the cleaning, it sounds like, but maybe once a month we'll hire someone. What about you guys? Does anyone else hire anyone out or DIY?
Carl, what about you and Jenna? Jenna, do you do the cleaning? Or Carl?
We go the DIY route. It hasn't really been much of an issue. I think our cleaning fee is about the same. It's like $30 a month or $30 a stay, which I feel like is a little bit low in our neighborhood. Some of the other comparable Airbnbs charge about 50 to 75. So, you know, I think that's probably because they're hiring someone out to do it. So since we do it ourselves, we can kind of keep that price low. Hasn't really been much of an issue though for the past couple months since we switched to the medium term rentals. They kind of keep track of all of their stuff themselves. They move out and then, you know, we do a thorough cleaning and we keep a few days booked here at the beginning and the end of each stay just to make sure that, you know, because of the virus, we want to follow all protocols. Other than that, you know, we don't have a lot of experience with hiring it out. I know Ben had mentioned it, but we're trying to stick out the DIY for now.
Could you touch on the protocols?
Well, we probably need to brush up on it since we've had a long-term stay, so I haven't looked up on it for the past month or so. But the last we checked, I think there was 48 hours in between stays that we were required. And, you know, they just basically had a list of all this chemicals, you know, alcohol to disinfect, the difference between cleaning and disinfecting. You need to do both. It's not one process. So, you know, and Airbnb has all those resources, whichever application you use or platform you use, I'm sure they have their own guidelines.
They also do a discount on cleaning supplies.
Oh, nice. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Nice.
There's probably quite a back order. It's hard to get cleaning supplies just about anywhere, but
yeah,
they updated a lot of stuff recently. So I'm in the process of going through all of it as well.
Nice.
Well, what about the next question there, Ben?
All right. Next question, we're going to kind of switch from the short-term rental over to renting by renting by the room and managing on a day-to-day basis. I'm really curious to see what Jeff has to say about it, but managing a house hack on a day-to-day basis and being able to effectively use technology or even automation by tracking your rent expenses, and then same with hospitality and putting your personal touch on it, and making your guests or your tenants feel at home.
Yeah,
So
this is.
let me preface this. Let me interrupt you first, Jeff, because I remember one of the things when Jeff got his fourth house hack here. There were a total of 9 bedrooms in between the front house and the ADU. Jeff walks and he's like, "Oh, it's great. Plus, there's actually 10 bedrooms. Or another bedroom could 10 bedrooms." So Jeff is like the perfect dude to talk about renting room by room because he knows how to optimize it. I want to preface it with that.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, the current one's really big. It's like the ultimate house hack. But yeah, to answer Ben Allison's question, pretty much I just use technology to my advantage. So I don't take rent at all by checks or cash. I just do Venmo, PayPal, or Zelle, whichever one they have. And if they don't have one, I pretty much tell them I don't take anything but those 3. So it pretty much they sign up for it. So, and then I have one tenant that does Cozy as well as the background check and credit check website. And they also you could get rent through them, but they have a 5-day delay. So it's really more time issues than all those 3 I just mentioned before. And then dealing with also using technology, pretty much I establish kind of like going back to college with office hours. I pretty much tell in the front end saying to each of the roommate tenants, and even the ones that I move out, you just can't call me at the middle of the night unless it's like a true emergency, like only between these hours. And then most of them, since that demographic that rents by the room is younger, they mostly text anyways, which then it gives me time to assess the problem and then deal with the problem with whatever the issue is, whether it's, something went out, like the door, they got locked out or whatever the issue may be. And then also establishing kind of going back to the front end, the house rules. So a lot of the problems, I think, again, going back to the college days with roommate conflicts is people just have no expectations. They just go into living with a bunch of roommates and, some people have different levels of cleanliness, different levels of partying. And then going into after college, that also is true. So a big thing I look for is that front end is like, here's the house rules, here's quiet hours, here, pretty much avoid a lot of those potential conflicts in the front end. So the only questions and concerns I get usually is small little things that like the ice maker doesn't work, or so-and-so is parked in front. Could you ask him, I can't reach him. Could you try calling him because his car is blocking mine, or whatever the case, like something small, like not petty roommate issues of, Tyler ate my food last night. Could you tell him he's a jerk and get my sandwich back, please? Nothing dumb like that. Or like, another thing too is the living room and kitchen. Pretty much when you share it with that many people, that's also a potential conflict. So we make it pretty much the living room as uncomfortable. Think of it like a waiting room. You want to sit there for a little bit, but not too long, because eventually it gets too uncomfortable and you have to get up. So we make our living rooms like a waiting room and avoid people just taking over and like playing video games or watching TV till 3:00 in the morning or whatever. Like they just pretty much go there, get food or cook something, and then they go there. Like pretty much 99% of the time they stay in their rooms, and that's, I think, the most effective way. Sometimes they talk to each other friendly, but I'm not trying to build a community here of, harmonious time where everyone gets along and they all cook together and have meals together. Like that's, great if that's what you want, but that could also lead to conflicts. And that's, I think, using going back to that front end, when you establish it up front, the rules and like how things are, and you establish a clean and really good quality place, then people respect that, or at least most people do. And then all it is about maintenance, and then maintenance goes back to just taking care of things right away. And I'm really good at following up with people or getting the right contractor in if I can't fix it myself, or if it's something beyond what I could do. And I am not a DIY. I shocked myself last time I tried to change a light bulb. So I try to avoid that stuff. But I do have, and that's another thing too, you'll have to think about if you rent by the room, just having, or any of these places for future, once you get past the first one, you're going to have someone that could, like, unless you have a lot of time yourself or really good at fixing things, you're going to have contractors that could fix electrical, plumbing, HVAC, furnaces, because that's the thing I tell Ivy, things will break. Unfortunately, no matter how nice things look, how new all the appliances are, they'll break. Or if they don't break when you're there, they'll break when the tenants are there. That's I think, a fair assumption to make. So make sure you have good contacts, because it sucks to call some furnace repair person in the middle of the night in the middle of December to fix your furnace if it could have been avoided from changing the furnace filter. So things like that. So that's all.
And I'll give a quick plug here, because part of I mentioned at the beginning of the call that we did like the Ultimate House Hacking series back in end of April. And so Jeff did a phenomenal job of really outlining a lot of like steps and resources. So there's a super detailed podcast coming out, and also it'll be in a blog post and also a chapter in the book. It's all based on the same information. Pick your poison. But he did a really like thorough, detailed job in there as well. So what would you give, kind of going back to Luis and Ivy, what would you recommend like for like the first couple action steps for them getting in with like, what app to use, all that type of stuff?
So Cozy, definitely get a Cozy account right away. That's probably the first thing you should do. There's also TransUnion has mysmartmove.com. That's another good one. But cozy.co, not com.co, is the best one, because you could do everything in there. You could do background credit screening. You could collect rent payments for all your properties.
And what do you do with, when you receive the money, what do you do with it? Does it go in a separate account? Or do you keep it in your personal account? And I'm also just thinking like when taxes come around, like how do you keep all that organized?
Yeah, so if you haven't done so already, I'd go to your bank and get another checking account, and then have all your rent payments go there. So if you have like your future tenant, let's just say they use Zelle, and they pay that way. So you just have them Zelle to your account, and then you have record keeping of all that for when you buy your next place, and it makes it really simple. Pretty much the goal is you want to be able to track it. The worst thing you could do is take cash, and you definitely don't want to take a check, just because I've had previous tenants bounce checks on me, and that's always annoying to go back to them. So don't even mess with checks. And then cash, of course, you don't want to do that because you can't really track it. So yeah, definitely do separate account. And then also, if you can, get a separate credit card or debit card. So when you purchase any supplies or for your repairs or anything, you can also, it's only on one card, not on your personal accounts. Because then when you have it on your personal accounts, you're kind of commingling your funds, and then makes it more challenging. So if you ever had to get audited, or worst case scenario, hopefully not, then be like, okay, show us, you have to go through all your personal accounts and figure out, okay, did we buy this thing at Home Depot for ourselves, or was it for you pretty much avoid that question. You're saving yourself a lot of hassle there. So yeah, separate account, bank account, and separate credit card as well.
That's really smart. Yeah, the
Yeah,
credit
if you don't
card.
get a separate credit card, again, if you're just doing minor repairs, just get the free debit card with every account too. And that way we don't have like 10 credit cards down the road, but just a debit account to run it, because that tracking, I've had different properties, different businesses over the years, and keeping it simple, stupid for tracking is such a lifesaver come tax time. It's in my mind that that time savings far outweighs any credit card points you'll get.
Right.
And so I'd be curious if everyone wants to go around, like, what banks do you guys use? Like, because I use Ally. Like, I'm always curious, like, what banks do you guys use for, like, multiple checking and savings accounts?
I'll start here. I started my real estate investing career in Omaha, Nebraska. So I have a couple out-of-state rentals as well. And it's just First National Bank. They're starting to branch out towards Colorado, but kind of similar to what Jeff said is within my First National Bank account, I can create subcategories. So for my rentals in Nebraska, I have a subcategory that goes to that. And then I keep receipts, but it can definitely be managed a little bit better instead of having a stack of receipts that I send to my accountant.
Come on. All right, Chris and Justin, I'm just going across the top of my video screen. What banks do you guys use for your Airbnb stuff?
We use Charles Schwab, so
Okay.
I think you can have multiple checkings and savings accounts. No fees on ATM withdrawals, so that's nice. And then it's just, you can have an IRA brokerage account with them. So we do most of our stuff with Schwab. It's pretty good.
What about you, Jeff?
So I got Chase, Wells Fargo, Elevations Credit Union.
Why do you
Ally
have
as well.
so many?
The points.
Okay.
Chase,
That doesn't surprise me knowing you, yes.
The Companion Pass, if you guys haven't heard of that, maybe when all this is over and Chase still offers it, it's a great deal for you and your partner. And all it takes is 2 credit cards with Chase. And you have to spend it's like $3,000 in 4 months, and then for 2 cards. And then you get 100,000 points, and then that you could use that for the Southwest Companion Pass, and it's a really good deal for 1 year.
I got that a couple of years ago. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And what we did, if you get it, whenever you hit that like 100 or 110,000 point threshold, you get Companion Pass the remainder of the year and then the full time next year. So do it early in the first year, and you basically get like a year and a half, year and 3/4 out of it.
Especially if you're paying for renovations, you should get some kickback for that.
Yes.
That's funded all of our big travel expenses. Is I call it credit card hacking. Never mind. I won't.
It does it a lot too.
What about you guys, Carl and Jenna?
We use Belco Credit Union. I think the reason we chose that is because they give you 2.25% like interest in your account, which is pretty.
Checking account?
For your checking account.
Wow.
Yeah, it's super high. So we did research before that, and so far it's been awesome.
Yeah, and like Jeff said, you just opened a separate line on that. That's just house, so income coming in and spending for the house going out. So super easy to keep track of that, and then of course take advantage of those Home Depot promotion cards when we can to get the interest free whenever there's a small project here and there.
What about you, Kendra? Last but not least.
I have 3 different ones. I have Chase, which I do for my credit card for like my purchases. I have a separate like business credit card. And then for like my incoming stuff, I use Ally Bank and Belco. So.
Are you doing Belco for the same interest rate benefit?
Yeah, the interest is crazy.
Yeah, I've
and
never
they had
heard
like
that.
this promotion, like if you sign up, you get like a $200 Amazon gift card too. So I was like, heck yeah, sign me up.
That's a good deal. I do know I've had a lot of lenders, a lot of them, and I don't know if partner is the right word, but they refer out to Belco because a lot of them have sung like Belco's praises for their HELOCs. I never used, but I know quite a few lenders say Belco has some great HELOC products. So it sounds like they got some good checking account products too. Because have your guys' interest rates on there dropped the last couple ones? Because my Ally savings account was like 2%, 1.9, 1.8, 1.7. Now it's like sub 1. Is it still the same at 2.25? Damn.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. All right, but I think we have time for one more question, right?
Yes, we did kind of already talk about it, but it was the rehab hire out and pros and cons. I think we covered that one in pretty good detail. One thing I wanted to kind of ask, kind of throwing a curveball out there is, we did talk about travel, managing out of state. Let's say you're out of state for a week or two. Has anyone ever had to do that?
Well, Kendra, you said 2 out-of-state Airbnbs, right?
Yeah, so my first 2 Airbnbs, they're in Branson, Missouri. So I manage those myself from being in Colorado. So I have all my systems and teams set up over there. So I feel pretty lucky to have that set up before I moved away. So like I first managed it while I was living there, which was easy. And I kind of set it up, systematized it, got my team together, and then moved away. And so it kind of worked out, setting it up before I left. So yeah.
But I think that's a great point because whether you're managing it full time away or you're gone for 2 weeks on a Southwest trip somewhere, if you got the systems in place, it's the same. I mean, can you kind of get a little more detail on like what was the toughest thing, or was like the biggest win for you in actually creating that system? Because I think it's much easier said than done.
Absolutely, yeah. So for Airbnb, finding a good cleaner, reliable cleaner that's going to actually show up when you need them to, was the hardest part for me. And especially when I expanded to having 2, I only had 1 really good cleaner that I could count on. So say I had a turnover on the same day at both of my places, she obviously couldn't be at both places at the same time. So just kind of scaling in that matter was difficult, finding people you can trust. And then of course things happen, like people get sick, or there's a snowstorm and they can't get to your condo, or things like that. So I think dealing with things that are kind of out of everyone's control was a little more difficult. And I'm still kind of struggling with figuring out how to deal with things like that. I've had a lot of situations come up where, my cleaner that's scheduled for the day has a family emergency and can't make it. So I'm scrambling, going down my list on my team to figure out who can cover for her, and just last minute things like that. I'm still trying to figure out how to deal with that.
And how long have you been away from running that long distance now?
2 years. I moved away in 2018. So
That's impressive.
yeah, I enjoy it. It's really fun.
So
when it all works
how
out.
involved are you long distance then?
Well, I do all the guest communications and all the scheduling for my cleaners, buying supplies, shipping them to my cleaner's house so that they can stock it up.
Okay.
And I deal with any like maintenance issues that I receive. But as far as like hands-on stuff, like I have my team over there and I just text or give them a call, tell them what needs to be done. And that's kind of how it goes. But I deal with all like the guest stuff.
I have a question for you, Kendra.
Yeah.
I guess I've stayed in a good amount of Airbnbs, and something that really not distracts me, but I don't really like about the Airbnb is the list price versus what you'll actually pay. So, you're scrolling down, you're like, oh, great, this room is $95. And when you go to pay, it ends up being $300. And my question really is, if you have to pay for all those services, cleaning, everything else, can you still be competitive with someone else who's doing it all themselves, who can list that cleaning fee for $25 instead of $90, who can make that end price just cheaper in general?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And I do get quite a few inquiries from people saying like, hey, I was about to book your place, but the price jumped up like $200 from like all the Airbnb fees and cleaning and blah, blah, blah. So what I do for my strategy is I do a lower nightly rate so that my place comes up like higher on the list, I guess. And then my cleaning fee is basically what's across the market. So my cleaning fee down there is $80 a night, which is pretty standard. There's some places that go up to like 100, 125. So I'm kind of on the lower end for the cleaning rate, but then I just lower my nightly rental. So that way I also get a higher occupancy, and it's more attractive to people looking, you know. I don't know. That's kind of my strategy. I just lower the nightly rate to kind of offset the higher cleaning fee.
I love how you mentioned where you sat in the market. So where you knew where your cleaning fee were as it relates to your competition, and same with your other local competition by scoping out your comps in the area and being able to manage it, know exactly where you're at. And so, you know, on the weekends, maybe I can charge this, weekdays here, and make sure keeping that occupancy rate high.
Yeah, I'm all about the occupancy rate. You know, I'd much rather be booked like 95% at a lower rate than 70% at a higher rate. I don't know.
So is your goal around that 95% occupancy rate?
I like anything above 85, honestly.
Okay.
85 is like my magic number. Yeah, that's my goal.
Is that kind of based on like just kind of like a sweet spot, or is that just, like I said, just like being full versus vacant?
I just think that's like a healthy, I don't know, honestly. It's not really like a science to it, honestly. That's just kind of like how I feel. It's like a good balance between where I feel comfortable pricing it versus, you know, getting it too high to where people don't book and I lose out. So.
And so I imagine that, because it sounds like a good amount of work, but I imagine that that's still more than you would get if you were to long-term rent it out. Is that true?
For that market, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's a big tourist town, so.
Okay, that makes sense.
I guess it just varies on market, so down there for sure.
Where is it located, you said?
It's in Branson, Missouri.
Okay.
Did COVID, how much did COVID hurt your tourism traffic down there?
Honestly, not a lot.
Really? Okay.
Like in March and April, I got cancellations, but then right after those cancellations came in, I got booked again. Like people were still going down there, and
are these much more like a cabin town, like cabin resorts, or just condos, or what are these?
They're condos. It's a condo resort. So there's a bunch of amenities and things like super close. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you stayed pretty full then. That's cool.
Yeah, I feel very lucky.
Yeah. Cool. Well, hey, I know we're coming up on the 30-minute mark. Kind of start wrapping things up. We got a few minutes left. Any final questions, thoughts, anything you guys want to throw out there?
I had a question that actually I sent over to Ben, and I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to get to it. But Luis had mentioned, for example, in our case, we had to switch over to FHA financing because it ended up being a duplex. And so our question is, we want to refinance into a conventional loan because we basically want to use our FHA in the future if we want to do like a larger multifamily. And so Luis and I are having conversations about where we want to put our money so that if we get it reappraised in a year or even sooner, how can we basically get the most value out of the home? So the conversations we're having is, do we reinvest more money towards the principal so that we somewhat pay down the equity faster? Or do we put money towards, renovations? So in our case, we could do the kitchen, but, our windows also have to be replaced. And so we're trying to figure out where our money should go so that we can basically get that 15% equity faster, because 15% is the goal for us to refinance into a conventional. And so we are trying to wrap our minds around where we should invest our money to basically get that equity as fast as possible. I don't know if anybody has any experience in that, but that would be helpful.
I can share a few thoughts here. The first thing is doing appraisals is one of the hardest damn things in real estate, because you're going to have 3 appraisers go out there and they're all 3 right. It's very frustrating. And sometimes appraisers, like I think your appraisal came in pretty high over list price, right? Like,
Yeah, I came in
like
$32,000 over.
yeah. I mean, so that right there is a good chunk. And I mean, sometimes if you go back and do a refinance in the first year, you can go out there and do that, use that same appraisal. So, like for example, I just refinanced one of my properties. I was able to use the same appraisal from about a year ago, just because interest rates dropped. I wanted to refi it. So it's actually a cheaper appraisal rate, and they use the same appraiser. I'm sorry, the same appraisal report. And I don't know if they use the same appraiser. I was hoping they would, because the appraiser, they put on their comments, oh, it should appreciate around 3% a year or whatever. Well, what he wrote a year ago, if it appreciates 3%, well, this is an $800,000 property. That's going to, that's $20,000 some dollars right there. It's a lot of money. So definitely I'd recommend working with the same lender, because they can help navigate some of the nuances there. And a lot of times, if you're going with the same, like Fannie to Fannie or Freddie to Freddie type refi, like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac type refi to refi, they have some of their own internal underwriting guidelines as well, where they can do a limited appraisal, or we use the same appraiser and that should help bump things up. As far as what's going to get you the best, bang for your buck, it's really hard to say. I highly doubt it'll be the windows. That type of stuff usually is like, bring up the value. How I would recommend right now, because when's your goal to have that 15% mark? Is it before the 1 year mark?
It's hard. We want to do it sooner rather than later, because interest rates are so low.
Yeah.
So we would like to just keep, the interest rate as low as possible. So it's not like we have a deadline per se, but we just would like to keep interest rates low.
Yeah. Have you, after this call, we should, let's reach out to Troy and get some ideas going on. You're working with Troy on the lending on this, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Talk with Troy about this. He might be able to get some insight on here as well, especially since your appraisal came in high. That this becomes very, like I said, it's very much more of an art, and a little bit like, hey, hopefully we just get lucky. I would not start putting money towards principal, because what we can do as well, and maybe say in 6 months or whatever it is, like, run a CMA, see what else the market is doing, and help you to feel, hey, this came over here with a couple of these features. Hey, maybe spend $8,000 on this, and this, and help bump it up. Or it might be like, hey, let's keep it as is, do the appraisal, and just, have it reappraised, and use that money when it comes to refi and help put more money towards the closing table. So I want to start prepaying your principal right now, because once it is, that money's kind of like locked in there. Mm-hmm. But keep that cash on hand either for improvements, or when it comes time to refi, if you need to bring more money to the table, hey, great, it appraises for, $30,000 more, so you're like, 13%. Well, hey, if we can bring an extra $10,000 to the table, we can write a check at that closing then to get enough equity
to get
on
that
property
15%.
as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely don't
sense.
prepay, would be one of my recommendations. Unless like, I'm thinking let's definitely talk with Troy about this. But generally speaking, I would not prepay.
Okay, yeah. Great. Yeah, it does seem like an art, because the appraisers never really, I don't know, you never know what to expect with them.
No, I mean, so this house, this is actually a fourplex I refied. The first appraisal, when I bought it, came in at 670, which was like 170 grand below purchase price. The second one came in at 855. So, wow. I mean, that's the biggest gap I've ever seen in my experience as an agent investor so far. But again, a gap that big isn't quite so common, but you'll definitely see swings. And like, how does one appraiser, how are they almost $200,000 difference? Obviously, right. I thought the first one was wrong, but my opinion doesn't really matter, as the buyer. Cool. So we are at the 30-minute mark here. Or the 2 30-minute marks. So we'll wrap up here. So I've had some ideas since we've been doing this. I would like to really, the goal is to keep doing this hopefully every month or so, get some people networking, new guests, returning guests on here. So listeners out there, check the show notes, and guests today, if you guys are willing to share, contact details, whether it's name, phone, email, social media handles, if you want to share links to your Airbnb listings or whatever it is, I think the more we can share, the better it is. Obviously, share what you're comfortable with, but it'd be great to have in the show notes, say a little bit of, headshot, profile, And now we actually start building a big community here as well, get people connected. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you for coming out. Appreciate everyone helping out. And Ben, thanks so much for kind of quarterbacking all the details on this, man. You did a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone taking.
Or wait. Is this like the Airbnb where Allison's doing all the work? That compliment Alyson on here?
Yeah.
So I had to rub you on that one, man.
I worked really hard.
That wasn't true. This was all Ben, by the way.
No, Ben, you did a great job, man. I'd have to bust your chops from our previous conversation.
I know.
All right. Cool, guys. Well, it was awesome. And we'll see a lot of you next month.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Chris.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.